All right, let's talk about resolution. And in order to do that, first I'm going to talk about the basics of 3D and terminology that I'm going to be using. So instead of continuing to sculpt on this head, let's go ahead and go out of edit mode. I'm going to go ahead and hold Control N to clear my canvas. I'm going to click my simple brush here to bring up my tool palette. And let's grab that trusty Cube 3D, drag it out of my canvas, go into edit mode, and then over here you can turn on the polyframe button or hit Shift F. Now I do want to kind of play around with this a little bit, so I'm going to hit Make Polymesh 3D. And to get this to show up a little bit better, I'm going to go into my materials here, and we'll get more in depth in the materials later, but we have matte cap materials and standard materials. I'm going to switch down here to standard materials, and I'm going to choose Skin Shader 4. I'll kind of brighten it up a little bit. So now I'm going to switch to my Move brush, so BMV. And in fact, you know what I'm going to do with this? With this as a Polymesh 3D, I'm going to go down to the very bottom of this tool menu, just click in this gray area and pull down. Go to Initialize, and you'll see our Initialize menu is no longer the primitive menu. I can now hit Q Cube, and that'll give us an even simpler cube, just divided twice on both sides. We get rid of those polarized caps. So we've already talked about the axes. If I turn on my floor here, you're going to see the blue line is Z forward, the green line is Y up. Here's our floor plane, which we have right here turned on. We can turn on X, Y, and Z planes. But for the most part, you just have your Y plane, which represents your ground plane or where your object sits on top of. Z is where it faces forward. Y is up, and then X is on either side. Negative X, for example, negative X here, and then positive X on this side. Each 3D object is made up of a few simple components. And to kind of demonstrate this, I'm going to skip forward just a little bit. I'm going to hit B, Z, M to bring up my Zmodeler Brush, and this will actually highlight the different components here, so it'll make it a little bit easier to explain. So now as I hover over this little point right here, you're going to see this is Move Points, and I can click and drag. And what I'm doing is I'm moving a vertice. So two vertices connected together form an edge. So now you can see when I hover over the edge, the default action is insert an edge loop. So if I click on this edge, I'm inserting an edge loop around that edge here and making more edges. So we have a vertice and a vertice here, and then these two connected together make an edge. And then if you take four vertices, or three, 1, 2, 3, 4 in this case, and then connect those together, that makes four edges. And then if you put a surface between those edges, you get a face. So the default action for this was Zmodeler's QMesh Poly, and again, we'll get to this later, more in depth. But if you pull out, you're going to see we can take this face and we can basically extrude it out. Now when I do that, I've created essentially new vertices, new edges, and new faces. So now this is a face, and this is a face, and this is a face, and this is a new edge, and then this is a new vertice. So an object is essentially made up of a bunch of vertices connected together makes edges, and then surfaces between those edges makes faces.